Wise Wednesdays started on April 1st with a humble episode on forgiveness. Between then and now, we've had heart-led conversations on happiness, stress management, relationships, resilience, public speaking, respecting boundaries, self-discovery, mindset, just being, listening, reclaiming your life, intuition, and even food. I would like to thank all my listeners and the guests who gave me their time and trust. It is because of you that we kept going. It is because of you that we kept growing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so, so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so, so much, and welcome to episode 92 of Wise Wednesdays with RK. Our conversation for today is around becoming your own boss. My star speaker today is Karen, and she is the founder and managing director of ORCHID Leadership Coaching and Consultancy. She's got nearly 30 years of international, she's done almost 30 years of leadership roles and with startup projects, predominantly in Africa and Asia, in the international education and transformative field environment. She's strategically positioned as a partner with international clients in the corporate and education sector to empower clients to take back control and to move forward in their leadership, developmental, career, and personal pathways. It is therefore no wonder that we are today talking about becoming your own boss. And without further ado, I bring to you Karen.
Hi, good evening. Lovely to be with you tonight.
Thank you for saying yes. I know it's late in the evening for you, but imagine that if you would have done our session today at the normal time, it would have been 1 a.m. Oh my God.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I would have been willing to come any time to have a discussion with you, believe me.
Thank you. And I met Karen over LinkedIn, common connections, and just I think when you are in the right space and you allow, you then attract the right people into your world, and that for me is how I met her. And we got on a call, we got speaking, and I said, I just have to have you on my show because I love the work she does with leadership and taking ownership of your life, which is a big part of what I am out there speaking about as well. So welcome, Carol.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with you tonight.
Thank you. So we've got Rahel who's watching. Thank you so much. And guys, let us know who's watching and from where so that we can acknowledge you for your time. And again, if you're new to the channel, do subscribe because I host amazing stars like these and we cover topics that might seem like very, oh, that's such a little thing. But, if you really put these conversations into practice, that's when you begin to see the major changes happening. And it can be so fabulous for you. We've got Ranjit watching. Ranjinath from Malaysia. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Malaysia. Lovely to see lots of fellow Malaysians here this evening. Wonderful.
Yes, indeed. So what would you like to jump straight into? The topic itself or a little about yourself?
Well, I suppose it combines both really, because my life really has been a journey of being my own boss in a sense, finding that inner voice and that inner authentic self. Having had years of experience in leadership, it took me quite a few years to really delve deep and gain what I would call that inner control of one's inner self and actually bring that inner voice out and say, look, everybody is a leader on the inside. It's not about the role. It's not about the title. There is a leader within all of us. And, through my years of leadership, and it's been predominantly in education leadership, through startup school projects, looking at transformative education projects, particularly at grassroots level. I found so many people in that journey who have identified the leader within themselves. And that's been the greatest joy for me, is actually helping others to identify their leader, particularly those who don't have what they would typify as a leadership title, in a sense, ranging from not just the business leaders and CEOs, that the typical C-suite leaders, it's also about the parents at home leading the family. It's also about the teenagers who are about to embark on their studies and taking ownership of what they're doing. So it's really a big picture leadership. When we say about becoming our own boss, it's not just about physically being a boss of a company, although that is the journey that I've ended up taking. But it's more of an inner journey of leadership. And that's something that I think very few people dwell on in the modern era. But I think as we develop forward into what is now typically known as, the hybrid working environment, if you will, I think we need to think more earnestly about the leader within us and what are we doing to help ourselves, to lead ourselves better into that future.
I do agree with you, and I'm very curious at this point to find out, when did you take ownership of the leader within you?
I think for many years, I went along the typical road of leadership because I had a leadership title. I was head of a school, for example, normal sort of K to 12 scenario. But it got to a stage where I felt, well, am I going to do this day after day, year after year? I want to give back something. I want to go to grassroots level. And it was really when I got to grips with that and said, no, let's bring it a halt here. Let's reflect. And in reflecting, I felt, my leadership would be better served elsewhere. And, I really began to work with what I would call grassroots level schools and really helping leaders there to, it wasn't me giving them something, it was actually helping to identify what was there. That I then began my own inner journey, in a sense, and going much deeper within myself. More so than leading a group, it was actually, well, what am I doing to lead myself? What am I doing to develop my own skills and take responsibility and accountability for that? And it's when, funnily enough, I was asked by the company I was working with at the time to actually work at a slightly broader level, at a district level, much more explicitly in coaching, when I really began to take stock. And I thought, well, I need to go deeper here. I need to really look at coaching and understand how it fits together, how I can help people much more authentically. And in doing so, again, I continued this very deep inner journey, which began to say, well, are you really leading your life in the direction it should be? And I had so many what I call mini eureka moments in that space of time. And that would have been around sort of 2019 approximately, where I was just taking stock and reflecting and saying, there's other things I can be doing that really fulfill much more wider scope of helping others in leadership. And it was really over an exercise where we were, during training in coaching, where we were looking at, well, planning 10 years ahead, 5 years ahead, 1 year ahead, where do you want to be? And lots of speed writing exercises. And I planned out my whole company within a few moments almost. And it was right there at the back of my mind. And I thought, how did that happen? And it's in the journey of understanding how that happened, by looking at the unconscious mind and how that works and how the limiting beliefs sort of creep in and all these kind of things that really helped me to understand what it is I was meant to be doing on a bigger scale and how I can be helping myself to do that and really begin to live what I would call, life's purpose in a sense and connect the dots.
So yes, I hear you, and limiting beliefs do creep in. And when they do creep in, you just need to be in that space of awareness that I am bigger than those limiting beliefs. And also be aware that there is something bigger than yourself playing a role here, and you don't have to really panic with the flow of things. And that's so, so
Absolutely. I
important.
couldn't agree with you more. Absolutely.
So, when we look at becoming your own boss, what are some ways that a person can become their own boss?
Well, I think the first step, and certainly the first step for me, and I can only talk to my own personal experience, is really getting to grips and understanding your big why. You know, your passion. What passion is it that drives you? And it's that same passion that will drive that big why as well. And, for many people, when they think of a big why, they think it's a quick reflection, oh, this is the reason why, write it down, it's in a little goal, and it's all nice and easy and tidy. And actually, in my own experience, I found it's less than tidy. It takes a long time of inner work to find out what that actual big why is, to look in the depths of your mind and say, what is it that's lurking there that was dying to get out? Where's the authentic voice? Who am I in real terms, and where are the dots that I need to connect to allow that voice to come out and flourish? And, it goes beyond just that inner voice and just that basic why. It goes into your reason for being. Why am I here? Why am I on this planet doing what I'm doing? And you can equate it really to a beautiful concept, a Japanese concept called Ikigai. And I'm sure many of your listeners may have come across this at some point. And I just love its simplicity, because it really gives you the whole picture of identifying or helping to identify that reason for being. So, looking at what it is that you love, for example, but that alone isn't enough, because what if you're not good at it? If you're not good at it, what point is it to everyone if you love doing it? So if you're finding something that you love, that you're good at, it gives you the passion, the drive, and a why. But also, is it what the world needs right now? So you have to evaluate your environment, those who you might want to help or be within a group, or, not necessarily in an entrepreneurship sense or a business sense. It might just be your immediate group or your family. Is it something that they need? And also, can it be paid for? This you might think of in a business sense, because then you're thinking, okay, so you have your equation of what you love, what you're good at, maybe the world needs that, but can you gain a revenue from that? Is it a healthy revenue? And if all those parts are equal together and coming in, that's where you can connect the dots, begin to think, well, that could be my ultimate reason for being. I can actually fulfill what I want to do. And at the same time, it might also lead to a revenue as well for those people who perhaps want to set up a business or be an entrepreneur, or, within a workspace where they may feel a little lost, for example, and want to regain some perspective.
Agreed. And a bit about revenue. Sometimes people hold back. For instance, I'll be honest with you. I struggled. I struggled for a long, long time when it came to shifting from doing a lot of pro bono work to shifting into paid coaching and paid public speaking, because my journey of actually owning my skill set or owning my message came from a place of loss. It happened when I realized that, okay, I have something to deliver further. However, I myself was at the time struggling with the loss of a personal loss. I lost my dad. My children had left for university. I was struggling. I actually sat down and made a list of reasons why I should start speaking again. Because, as you know, and if the people are regular to the channel, they know that I used to do this prior to hitting that situation in life, and then to move out of it. So, to share with you, I sat down and made a list of close to 200 reasons, 200 reasons why I should do this. And it was beautiful, because it was almost like going one layer, deeper and deeper and deeper, and understanding what is important to me, and then using that as the foundation to kind of springboard forward. So, yes, definitely makes sense to have your intentions identified and to move forward with a lot of clarity and to realize that what you give away sometimes for free, people don't see as priceless. Tell us a little bit about that, please.
I think, I completely align with your story, and I also come from, a place of loss in my youth as well. And a lot of that is what drives me today. It gives me my passion to continue day in, day out. So I think part of it is having that big why, not losing sight of the passion that's driving you, and the inner values that you align to what you want out of life and what you want to give. But I think it's also knowing your worth. You really need to embrace that which you hold dear. And if you have skills that you know have value, then give them a price. And yes, we balance what we do, particularly in the coaching sphere. Those who are coaches or perhaps counselors, mentors, we want to help. We want to give back. It's part of our DNA in a sense. But we also want to give worth to the skills that we have and the processes that are in place, because it's a great process that we take our clients through when we partner with clients, and often it gives them great results. So it is knowing your worth, because when you think about it, it comes back down to limiting beliefs again, doesn't it? When we suddenly think, oh well, I should do it for free, really, I should do it for pro bono because I'm helping them. That's what I'm doing. Well, yes, we can't help people unless we help ourselves sometimes. So we do need some elements of revenue coming in, and we can balance that with pro bono cases and with areas where we can give back, particularly where we might be working with NGOs or people who perhaps wouldn't have access ordinarily to coaching services in particular. But I think it's very important for us not to forget the value we place upon ourselves and the skills that we have, and to give that a certain price. Now, obviously, it's up to each individual what price that might be. It might be based upon experience. It may be based upon the kind of credentials you might be coming from. It might be also based upon the success stories that your clients have, given you in a sense. But there needs to be some element of cost that you can then, scale up at some stage, perhaps. And it's sometimes when you have that little voice telling you, which is that trigger of a limiting belief to say, oh, you shouldn't really put a cost on that. Or are you really sure, to charge that much? Those kind of questions, which we all get. We need to recognize that it's a trigger and challenge that story that we're telling ourselves and say, no, I'm actually worth that. The skills that I'm giving are worth that. The results that the client will gain are worth that. And it's all about that self-worth. And if you're enough, and if you can say that you're enough, then you can be of best service to your clients at the end of the day.
Absolutely. I do agree. It's all about understanding self worth. And I think when people pay, they also pay attention. So
Yes.
in the in the long run, you are helping them by putting a price to your services. So it definitely makes a difference. We have a question. Thank you so much for the question. It is for shaping one individual into one great leader boss. What are key qualities he should possess? Would love to know your views on this.
Wow, what an awesome question. I love this question. And I think it boils down to some basic qualities. When we think about leadership in particular, it's all to do with integrity, authenticity, and humility in the very basics. Very often we think about the title of leadership. What title do I have? It's swinging some power in a sense with the title, but actually it's all about humility and giving others the power. It's enabling others, it's empowering others. If you show that you're empowering others, you are showing true leadership. If you're putting others first and having what I would call servant leadership, where you're serving your team, you're serving others, not just serving your own needs of power. So authenticity, humility, servant leadership, and I think also, having that tenacity of being able to be diligent and sort of agile in what you're doing, because very often our environment changes so quickly, particularly in recent times, that we do need to act with agility. Now, that doesn't mean that we swap and change with the wind. It just means we react positively and are proactive to our circumstances so that we can serve others much better, because we're reacting to their circumstances as well. And I think also, I think as a leader, we also need to act as lead coach and lead mentor. We lead the way as far as having and being an advocacy for a coaching culture, because, people need to be on a developmental path. And by doing so, they need to be able to have people around them who are curious, who ask questions, who empower who they are and who they're aspiring to be. So I think being that leader of change, if you will, of being a lead coach, or at least advocating others to be leaders around, be coaches around you in order to develop those skills, would be essential as well. And I think also that active listening, where you're listening to those around you, not just because you're creating space for them to talk, but you're actually actively listening to understand what their needs actually are. And I would say as well, when you're thinking in terms of leading yourself, you need to listen to yourself just as much as you listen to other people. Because very often it's your inner voice who's crying out as well, who is waiting to be heard. And yes, you can be your own taskmaster. You can say, do all your deadlines, everything else. But you also need to know and recognize the triggers of when you need to let go, when you need some space, when you need to just take a little time out and reflect on all the milestones so that you don't, get that burnout occurring. So again, reflection is a key also. Reflect on not just what needs to be done next and that constant almost rat race, if you will, of pushing, but also looking at, well, where have we come from? Let's have some celebratory moments. And if you have a team, celebrate that team, celebrate where they've come from and where they are now and where they're aspiring towards. And if you're working as a solopreneur or you're a parent in the home, celebrate yourself, celebrate what you've achieved so far, celebrate what you've done that day. So it's all about that positive reflection and being able to plan further ahead and have that foresight to see, what could happen, whether it's triggers or whether it's maybe obstacles or even opportunities. So again, reflection is very important. So I would say most of those are the key skills. I mean, we could go on all evening with leadership skills for sure, but I would say those are the most integral ones that come to mind.
I've got prayer going on in the background, which is why I've chosen to mute. So don't look at it any other way. It's just to
No
make
problem.
sure that the voice is only yours and I'm not disturbing in any way. So I love how you speak about empathy. What I'm listening as you share this is to have empathy for yourself as you
Yeah.
be the leader, right? And to celebrate yourself, which is so important. Now, empathy, celebrating milestones is beautiful. And that reminds me, you spoke of Ikigai, and what I am reminded of is the other thing that is another Japanese concept, which is Kintsugi. Is it
Yeah.
Kintsugi, where the broken bits of you or the broken bits of an object is laced with gold, so that you are reminded of the beauty in a loss or beauty in a failure, the lesson in a failure. That's how I look at it. Tell us a little bit about that.
I love that you brought that up. It's so vital as a leader to recognize that, I mean, we will make mistakes. We will have some areas to heal within ourselves. And it's not about pushing them aside. It's not about letting them go entirely. It's about how do we build that into who we are? How do we embrace that fully? Because, we don't take away bits. We let go of the negative emotions, definitely. But, those areas of hurt, how do we bring them into being, that they become a positive aspect, that the narrative becomes a positive part of our story? And when we think about the picture there of all the healing parts laced with gold, it produces such a beautiful picture that we say about our healing that it's a beautiful experience when we go through healing, when we come through the other side and recognize where we have, whether it's mistakes, whether we've experienced grief, whether we've gone through heartache, all those different areas combine, where we can actually bring some positivity to that experience and learn from it and gain so many lessons. And that's what that gold signifies, is the lessons we can learn together and actually, begin to create what is our narrative as we step forward in our story. Because very often we sit content within our comfort zone of, well, this is my story, this is what I embrace, and this is who I am, only because this is what I think I'm capable of. This is the barriers or the boundaries of who I am. And actually, if we just dip our toes a little bit outside of that comfort zone, and we say, no, I want to begin to heal myself beyond that. I want to go through that fear, that risk, and reach the other side where I'll reach growth. And when I see growth, then I'll be a whole new person. And when you then reach that newness, as it were, as a new person, you have a new story. But the journey between that comfort zone of being all cozy underneath the quilt, in a sense, and moving through the fear, the risk, getting towards the growth period, it's almost like one of these mega cinematic episodes, of you going through this journey as this hero in a story, but it's your story. And sometimes we forget that we are in control of our story. We are in control of our healing. We are in control of how that gold is perpetuated among those broken pieces and what it can look like at the end of the journey. And, to do that, we need to identify and recognize all those areas that are troubling us, all those limiting beliefs, all that feelings of self-worth and, am I enough? All those questions we give ourselves that our mind is throwing at us because it's trying to protect us all the time in the comfort zone. But we challenge it. We say, what if that's not true? What if actually it's another story? What if I can do that? What if I can stretch forward? What if I can lead over there and do this? What if I can do that skill and have a go? And by doing that, you gradually, that's why you're fixing all the different bits and pieces, and you're beginning to design your own area of little bits of gold in between and your own narrative and story at the same time. And that's where, no matter what role you have, whether it's a leadership title, whether it's a business you're running, whether you're a parent in the home or a student in the school and college, this is where you start to take ownership. You begin to heal from the inside out. You begin to formulate your story and begin to really believe the new story. And by manifesting it and just living it one day at a time, that's when you can actually believe it's true and it becomes true. And you reflect back and think, wow, was that me back then, feeling so safe? And yet I feel so much better now with the person I am, in the changes that I've made and the growth that I've made.
And thank you so much for sharing your views. And I must say, Orchid leadership coaching is in the hands of a great leader, says my regular listener, Rahil. Thank you so much, Rahil. Indeed,
Thank
it
you
is.
so much for that comment. I feel so blessed to receive that.
Thank you. Oh, wow. I've got Pulkit watching as well. He says, so nice to see my favorite coach, Rupaya, hosting Miss I don't know how to say that. It's
Don't worry, it's McClymont, but it's a tricky one. Don't worry.
it's a tricky one. So I call her Karen. So thank you so much for this.
Absolutely.
Uh, so, uh, and as you were sharing that, what came to my mind was the 4 minute mile, Roger
Ooh,
Barrister, right? So when
yes.
until it was done, nobody really thought that it is humanly possible to beat that. Nobody thought that it is possible to kind of finish that race in lower than 4 minutes. But once it was done, the glass ceiling was broken. Everybody started working harder, doing things better, and I think a lot of times our limiting beliefs are self-imposed. We
Mm.
think we're not capable of it. We think, oh my, this is probably going to kill me, or this is probably going to, really take me to my boundaries. But this is how it is. It's beautiful. So okay, so we have a question here. Becoming my own boss or becoming my own captain, what is better?
Wow. I love that question. That's an interesting one. Well, I think actually when you think in terms of captainship, I mean you're heading the boat, aren't you? You're leading the people. So certainly captainship and being your own captain definitely is a great title. And when you're becoming your own leader, you're really settling the seas. So if we go on this nautical term, you're building your ship, you're building your life, you're also developing the inner self and the skills you need. And so yes, you do become your own captain of your own life along the sea of life as you tread forward. So when you think in terms of being your own boss, you could substitute that word with whatever word you would align with leadership. Whether it's a captain, whether it's somebody who you would align with to actually say, well, here I am in control. And it's about having that control and being authentic to yourself. Because at the end of the day, very often we try and live by other people's standards or by society's standards. And, when we think in, let's say, morality terms, yes, that's fine. We all have to live within certain boundaries. But when we think about our life's purpose, about our reason for being, that's when we need to start listening to our authentic voice, of allowing that authentic self, that captain, to come forward in a sense and step forward and say, I'm willing to be in control. I'm willing to take responsibility. And this is where, your own voice is vital. And it's not just giving the voice to other people and having a conversation. It's actually allowing your voice to be heard by yourself,
Hmm.
firstly. That inner voice that's often there and you just push it to the side because you think, no, 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 I can't do that. I can't possibly try that. This is not me. And, I can't tell you the amount of times throughout my leadership roles and through my life where I've actually said those exact same things. I said, no, I can't do that. There's no way I could try this. The amount of time you procrastinate over a lack of doing something. And then when you finally overcome that, whether it's through yourself, through healing, or through coaching, when you finally do it, you think, why on earth didn't I do it sooner? Why didn't I? When I think about the podcast that I started doing, which was late last year, it took me over a year to begin the podcast, would you believe? I had all the equipment, I had all the know-how, I'd researched it. In fact, I'd overthought it so much that I just was stagnating.
Hmm.
And I approached a few of my friends who were also coaches. We said, look, let's just do some peer coaching here because I need some guidance. Let's do this. And gradually I just overcame that hill and just went and did it. And now I'm in season 3 of doing that podcast. So, you just have to reach a point where you challenge yourself. You challenge that story that's within you and you just say, no, I'm taking control. This is not true. This is not the truth about me. I can do this.
Yep.
But to do it, I need to try.
Hmm.
I'm not going to stop trying. That's the key. You need to try, you need to dip your toes in. And even if you fail, it's okay. Just treat it as a first try of many if necessary.
First try of many. And I think I'm just going to allow myself to wear my NLP cap hat and step in here and say, instead of using the word try, what if you could use the word aim? Because
Mm,
when you look at it from the NLP perspective and how words have an influence on your results, the word try is permission to fail. So people might just go, "Oh, I gave it a try, it didn't work out, so
yes,
I'm in the clear."
exactly.
So created a little shift when I say, instead of try, let's use the word aim. Because when
Mm,
you use the word aim, what it implies is you have a target in front of you. You have something that you are focusing on. You are putting an effort. You are silencing yourself. You're standing still. You're taking your shot. And then if you've missed the shot, you have the capacity to, pull back another arrow and aim again or shoot again or whatever it is.
absolutely.
So let's aim
Absolutely.
to attempt and see where it takes us. It's interesting because a few years back, when actually NLP got introduced to me, this was in 2007, 2009, around that time. I was interviewing people for a local magazine. I had to interview around 5 people, and out of the five, three spoke to me about NLP. And although all 5 of them were good achievers, were high achievers, these three really stood out for me. And it just felt like, wow, the way they spoke, their results, the confidence with which they carried themselves and their words was profound. And being a writer, I was, attracted to it. So to cut a long story short, I got invited to do a firewalk, because one of the people that I was interviewing was a firewalk starter. She was on my show a few weeks ago, actually. My trainer, my coach, Carol. I went there, and there is the stretch of coal, burning coal, and I have to walk across. And in my head, I'm thinking, what am I even doing here? I could very well be at home. Why am I standing here with these people who think they can walk across coal? But I did. Once you kind of tune your mind to the possibility of it, and you walk on the other side and you look back and you say, wow, it's beautiful. So anything that you might be wanting to do that you've been holding back yourself from doing just because of what people might say or how things might flow, just still go for it. Just go for it.
Indeed, I couldn't agree with you more. In fact, I had a very similar experience. It wasn't quite walking on coals, but it was, breaking the wood, as it were, when you're snapping
Yes,
the wood with
yes,
a
yes.
fist.
Yep.
And very similar experience there. With NLP training, so I can completely relate to that. And yeah, it's all about that aim, definitely, and having that intention and being intentional with your decision making for sure.
I think a lot of time people's journey, whether it's entrepreneurial, whether it's in relationships, whether it's academics, even sometimes it just frizzles out because they haven't really identified the intention, and they
Yes,
haven't really sat down with them and understood what works for them, what is their value, what drives them, what's their fuel, what kind of takes away their energy. They haven't done that study, which is so important as a foundation to move forward. As a coach of almost 30 years in the standing, what is the biggest limiting belief that comes to your table every now and then?
I think quite honestly, that something that keeps coming up, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, is self-worth, because it can come at you in different directions when you least suspect it. Whether it's in a costing direction or whether it's, I can't do that, I shouldn't do that, what will people think? It comes in all sorts of guises, but it is about that self-worth. And it is about then challenging that to actually say, well, actually, let's just look at it for what it is. Let's just understand why it is that I'm thinking this way. Where does
Hmm.
it come from? And actually say, well, that isn't the truth. I have done things before, so I must be worthy. Put some real challenge behind it, and tell the truth about the journey that you've taken. You're just looking at one element. So therefore, taking apart the milestones and saying, well, actually, I have done that, and I've done this, and I've done this along the way. So therefore, I can do this new challenge. That, what I'm telling myself there, is a lie. It's not a belief. It's not true. And then reshape and reframe that so that you're beginning a new story and creating a new story that you can then believe a positive, and reaffirm that. And I think it's very important that when you do these challenges, you make that challenge of this limiting belief, is that you have some affirmations there in order to really confirm and manifest what you want to come. And so, that can come in worded affirmations. It could be some worded incantation you tell yourself each morning. It can be through meditation, through visualization. There's so many different ways. And I know for me, certain things that work for me are visualization. I'm a very visual person. So if there's something tricky coming ahead, I often visualize myself going through that process and coming out the other side in a successful outcome. And, I feel what that experience is of that success in that visualization. And when you train your mind to actually sense that success, then you're really training it to experience positivity, and how you're actually going to feel when you have that success, when you've finished what you're attempting to do and what you're aiming to do. So, a lot of these things where you might visualize, you might meditate, you might affirm, all then really help you towards really pushing that limiting belief out and moving forward. It's all about moving forward and making sure you're not stagnating in that limiting belief, but you can move beyond it and actually accomplish something. So there are so many ways of which you can actually move forward and give those affirmations. It just depends what works best for you as a person. And often it can be trial and error, but that's fine. You've got to tell yourself that's okay. But when I find what works for me, then I will stick to that, and I will really push forward whenever this little trigger comes. And it will come. You never quite reach a stage where you get rid of it entirely, but you recognize it. So then you can actually reframe.
Yep. And I think we all go through that, right? Imposter syndrome, where you ask yourself, who am I to be doing this, and what makes me think I can do this? Oh God.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on a little project of my own. I am actually creating a log of all my live videos, and as you know, today is day 1381 of that commitment. It's
Wow.
all like crazy. So I have so far managed to compile close to 300 days. It's a lot of work. I didn't
Yep.
realize. I mean, you show up every day and you present, and it's over. But to actually go back and create that log has been very enriching for me as a journey, because
Mm.
now I actually get to see evidence of, oh, this is how I started. and
Yeah.
and this is when the trademark hello hello started. This is where I improved on my scarf. This is where I actually, it's a journey that has happened. And if I look at one of the days, and I don't remember the number right now, I had it written down, I don't have the paper right here. But on one of the days, and I can tell you the day was 28th of July, 2018, sorry, when my daughter had left back to Australia. It was an early morning flight, and I had to do my live in the afternoon. I was very, very upset, alone after many days once again. And I literally switched on the camera and just cried. It's like bawling my eyes out, because uh, I had the option that day to just choose to, let it slide. I
Mm.
mean, what's the big deal? I could just skip a day, right? But I don't know, there was just something within me that said, no, this is a task, this is a commitment I've taken. And there is no deadline to it. It's very interesting. I don't have a deadline to it. I'll show up every day as long as I can. So I showed up that day and I sat there crying and sharing. And it was beautiful, because I think somewhere people think that as someone who is leading or who is presenting themselves as a coach and in control, they're always in control. But we have our good days and bad. We are human before we are anybody else, right? So, what I'm trying to take you here towards is vulnerability and the strength in allowing vulnerability. Because I think there can be a level of fierceness even in your vulnerability. If you own your emotions, you have the power to say, yes, I'm having a bad day or I'm having a bad moment right now, but it doesn't have to be a bad week. It doesn't have to be a bad month. It doesn't have to be a bad life. I don't have to be defined by this label. So I did the live, the 8 minutes of it, whatever it was, went on with my day. And it was beautiful to observe. As I said, I'm creating the log. It's lovely to observe. The very next day, definitely feeling a lot better. I was satisfied that my daughter's back where she needs to be in university. She's happy with her friends and everything. So it kind of calmed me down. So it's been quite a nice way to observe the journey moving forward. And as you become your own boss, you will go through a journey. You will evolve. You will have good days and bad days. It's just about knowing how long you want to stay in that valley and when you want to start climbing again.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. I mean, many people have this assumption sometimes that leadership is almost like a straight line. You go from A to B, or it almost goes like an upper quadrant, and you think, no, but it doesn't quite work like that, unfortunately. It goes in peaks and troughs, doesn't it? You'll have your
Yes.
great days where you've climbed the mountain and you're planting the flag and you feel on top of the world. But often quite following that, you might be in a deep trough because you don't know how to get to the out of it into the next skill because it's something so new. And you are full of ups and downs, and there are times when you want to go backwards rather than forwards. And it is about self-regulating, self-regulating your emotions. And that doesn't mean ignoring them, neither does it mean dismissing them. It means actually engaging with those emotions and recognizing them for what they are, and recognizing the part of which you are on your journey. Because very often we spend a lot of time comparing ourselves to other people. We see other people who may be in a similar sphere in life, for example. Maybe they're also a coach or also a business owner, etc. But maybe they're at a different point of the journey than you are. You
Yep.
might be at the beginning of the journey. Therefore, your experiences will be very different to someone who's had, 30, 40, 50 years of experience, for example. So you have to judge yourself by your own standards and experiences, not by other people. So, comparing to where you were yesterday, not to what other people are doing. So again, it's about recognizing those emotions, engaging with them, and really seeing, well, what am I going to do with that emotion? Am I just going to, wallow in self-pity? Am I going to just feel unworthy and not get out of bed today? Or am I actually going to, despite that feeling, get up, do something of worth, and actually make the day count, And sometimes it is tough to get up and be counted, even if it's not in front of other people, it might just be in front of yourself. But, the way that you can feel when you have done that and say, well, even though, yeah, it was a bad day, and yeah, I only did this one thing, but I did that one thing, and I know tomorrow is going to be an even better day. You have to have those little affirmations to tell yourself, even if it was the worst day ever, it will end. All things like that will come to an end, and tomorrow is a new day. And you can approach that new day the way that you want to. You can have control over that new day. And very often, what I might do is, if I'm having a particularly negative day, I will sit down and plan the following day to make sure it's the most positive day I can even make it, just to put some positive spin, some positive reframing into what I'm doing. And sometimes that might include reflecting back on some key moments and just to say, well, what have I achieved from, let's say, 2 years ago or 1 year ago? What can I do now that I couldn't do before? who am I now that I wasn't before? Because very often, because we're on that journey, we don't recognize the milestones. We don't see the actual journey that we've taken, because we're just in the here and now constantly. And sometimes you do need to look back with positivity and say, well, what have I done? And very often you'll then realize, wow, I was so different back then.
Yeah.
I couldn't do then what I can do now. And that can rejuvenate the motivation. It can rejuvenate the vision that you've created for yourself. And very often you need to be your own visionary. You need to self-inspire. If you haven't got a team around you, you have to rely on yourself to step up and just really motivate yourself with those moments and with those reflections, and to set yourself little targets that are manageable and bite-sized, that will lift you out of what I would call the doldrums in a way and push you forward, because even a small step forward is still movement, and that's what you need to create.
True, true. I do agree. And as you say that a step forward is a step, and I think sometimes we also need to take a step outside the picture,
Yes,
see the
yes.
bigger picture, because as you said, we're in the here and now. We're so involved in what's going on that we do not stop to reflect, to celebrate. I love the fact that
Mhm.
you are emphasizing on celebrating. A lot of us are in this rat race, as you said. We're ticking off tasks one after the other, and we're not pausing to acknowledge ourselves, acknowledge the journey. So it is super important to do that. Do not get lost in the celebration. don't go
Yes.
don't go on a high and just forget where you're supposed to go next, but take that time to acknowledge yourself. So important. A lot of us, we seek externally for validation and applause. What if you could be your own cheerleader? How fascinating would that be?
Absolutely. Yes, yes.
So as we close this conversation, what are some things that you can share with us about um, entrepreneurship and being your own boss?
I think the main thing, I mean, we could talk all week about entrepreneurship as a singular topic, couldn't we? But I
Right.
think the main thing, whether you're a budding entrepreneur, whether you're a business owner, whether you're a parent at home, or whether you're just coming into conversation, wanting to know how to lead yourself a little bit better and be in more control,
Hmm.
is just to sometimes trust yourself. Be patient with yourself.
And as you say that, sorry to interrupt, but as you say that, what came to me was, what if you were your project,
Mm.
right? And what if you
Absolutely.
you were the boss of your own project? So,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Please go
And
ahead.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, because it's not just about, sometimes we think being your own boss, or being the captain, if you will, it sort of displaces you a little bit, doesn't it? You think of being a boss of something or someone, and it really displaces you as a person. Whereas when you really embrace who you are, you're really developing an inner journey, and you're trusting that inner voice, and just programming daily that unconscious mind to say, this is my positive narrative, this is my story that I'm telling day by day, and this is where I'm going to go to. This is me in control. This is me taking control of every second of my existence. So these are the things I want to accomplish. This is me going all in with my life. It's not just about going in all in with a job. It's about going all in as a person, of not just dipping your toes in the water, but just diving into the depths without the life buoy and saying, this is my life and I'm going to live it. And I will trust that I have the skills, I have the resources within me to actually push forward, to make the life that I want, and to really just live a life that is reality for me and is positive in every way. And so by going all in, it's having the positive attitude, the growth mindset, and just appreciating yourself for the place you're in and developing that journey, but being in control and trusting the journey.
True. so important to trust the journey, to trust the journey, whether you're looking at it as your boss, whether you're looking at it as the captain of the ship, or as the champion of your own life. It's also important to trust the journey and to just let go, because
Yes.
put in the effort and then let it go. Stop kind of constantly knocking at the universe and saying, hello, I did that. May I have my rewards already? They will come as long as you've put it in with the right intention, and as long as you've make sure that you're putting the right effort, working consistently, and
Mm.
with trust, as you rightfully said, and celebrating moving forward.
Indeed, indeed, yes.
So thank you, Karen, for being on the show. Before you go, there is one last thing. There's a quote of mine. I say, add healthy toppings to your life. What are your thoughts on that?
Wow, that's lovely. I mean, adding toppings to your life, it's like just adding value and collecting all the dots about what you are. For me, it's how are you adding to yourself? How are you empowering yourself to step forward and be the best of yourself that you can be? And it boils down to what we started with, is embracing your own authentic self and
Hmm.
just going deep within and acknowledging who you are, but adding all that you can so that you are the best person you can ever be. And by the time you're within your journey, along your journey, you can begin to recognize the person you always were meant to be and embrace that person, embrace that future, and be able to empower yourself such that you can keep adding different elements that really shine
Yeah,
and enable such growth that you know that you are authenticity itself, and you recognize yourself finally by the work that you're doing.
true. And as you add these healthy toppings, whether it is with what you're consuming, whether it is with who you're moving with,
Mhm.
whether it is the emotions that you are engaging with, I think that's truly where, as you said, you shine. You understand who you are authentically, and then you shine. So thank you so much for that. And I am absolutely blessed and grateful to have gems like you in my circle of genius, because that's what these conversations are about. I invite people from my circle of genius on the show every week, and we hash down a topic that you choose, and it's so beautiful to have these conversations. So thank you, Karen, once again for saying yes, giving us your time. It's late in the evening for you, and I'm so grateful for the time and energy you've given this conversation and the wisdom.
Well, likewise, thank you so much for the opportunity. It's been lovely talking with you and to your audience as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, and wishing you a great rest of the day, evening, morning, wherever you are in the world. Thank you. Bye.